is not over just yet.
Woohoo! USA! USA!
We have an action-packed hour for you 6 p.m. drivers.
Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
Matt Skraby wraps up a full day of live and local sports talk.
And that is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for October 29th, 2025. Thank you for joining me. World Series right now, bottom of the third. Dodgers are on the board. Kike Hernandez takes the Savage deep. Toronto 2, the Dodgers 1. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go along. And you may have heard me say this before. If you listen to Gwen and Chris, I mean, I'm sure you do. But whenever there's not a Padre game and I'm driving home from work because I live in North County, I usually, and there's some sort of, I don't go and seek out Dodgers games on the radio, but like World Series, I'm going to listen to it. And I listen to their home broadcast, and I got to say, their home broadcast is very hard on them. And it's a really nice listen for someone who's not a big or not a Dodgers fan at all. It's a nice listen because they're saying everything that we all say, but other Dodgers fans can't say or won't say. So it's a nice listen when you can hear the home broadcasters just ripping the team apart when they're playing bad. Last night, they're down 6-1. Dodgers broadcasters just ripping the team apart. And I appreciated that. I really did. Because I was thinking it, and no one ever says it, but then they did. And it was their home broadcast. So I'm not going to tell you where to go to listen to that, but if you come across it, you will enjoy it. I am sure about that. All right. If you want to watch the show, you can. You can just search 97.3 The Fan on YouTube, or you can go to The Skraby Show, youtube.com/@The Skraby Show, Facebook 97.3 The Fan, Twitch 97.3 The Fan, and X @Matt Skraby. The big news, it's not even really that big a news to me, but it's a managerial hire, and we'll talk about the Padres here in just a second. But the Twins have taken Derek Shelton off the board, and he is now the manager of the Minnesota Twins. Now, this makes a little bit of sense. He was a bench coach in 2018 and 2019. So, he has history with the organization. But the reason I'm starting with this is because I do not want the Padres to just one day release a statement saying that they hired a coach that's like similar to Derek Shelton, because I don't see success screaming from Derek Shelton. Now, he was the Pirates manager, I should say. He was the Pirates manager. He started in 2020. That's a tough year to start. But he went through 2025. He got fired after 38 games this year. But here's how his team has finished in his tenure as the Pirates manager. 2020, I'll even just throw that away. 2021, they lost over 100 games. They were 5th in the Central, National League Central. 2022, they lost exactly 100 games. They were 4th in the National League Central, which is kind of crazy, but that's the White Sox. Or no, not White Sox. Duh. I got to see who else? Is it the Reds that were that bad? It was the Reds. Oh, they both tied at 62 and 100. Anyway, back on track. 2023, 76 and 86, 4th in the Central. 2024, 76 and 86, 5th in the National League Central. And then this year, another losing season for the Pirates. But in 746 games, his record is 306 and 440. Never made the postseason with the Pirates. But I'm not saying that Derek Shelton can't be a manager. I'm just thinking that this doesn't inspire a lot of confidence with me if I was a Twins fan. And I don't know if Em McKee is on the chat. I know her husband is a Twins fan, so it would be nice to get a little news and feeling from a Twins fan. But to me, this is underwhelming, and this is what I don't want to have happen. And I would much rather I would much rather. Do I really want to say this right now? But yes, I would much rather go down with the ship with Albert Pujols than bringing in a guy like Derek Shelton, who has never won as a manager in his career. I think that is an easy hire for the Twins to make. It's a safe hire for the Twins to make. I know that the Twins themselves, the organization, is either they're not selling anymore when they were supposed to sell. They had the whole fire sale during the trade deadline where they got rid of a lot of their great players. So next year, they're kind of rebuilding now. And so maybe Derek Shelton is the manager that they want to help rebuild the team. But I just don't understand this hire. I don't think that it's going to be successful for the Twins. And now that I say that, it could be the best thing that they've ever done. But when someone is a manager and your winning percentage is .410, I can't look at that and think, hey, I want that guy to be my manager. I want that guy to lead me into battle every single day. Like I would, if he were to go, Derek Shelton were to go and be a bench coach somewhere or be something else for a little bit and kind of rebuild his brand and then get a manager job, then sure, I can understand that. But I do not understand going from manager to manager from the Pirates to the Twins. Again, the Pirates aren't the best organization in the world, but he didn't win. And the proof is in winning and losing. And he did a lot of losing. So that would really uninspire me if I was a Twins fan. So I bring that up because the Padres have put their list of finalists together for the manager position with the Padres. And you can add with Albert Pujols, Nick Hundley, and Ruben Niebla to the list of Padres managerial finalists. And it's funny that Tony said before he left studio that he said he was selfishly hoping that Niebla did not become manager. And obviously Tony wants good things for him, but he is an incredible pitching coach. And I think that he's more than just a pitching coach to this team. I think that he's a guy who's a steadying force in the clubhouse because of his experience. And, the few times that we've talked to him, I've gotten to see that he is a pretty easygoing guy. And so I can understand why players like working with him, and I can understand why he's had success as a pitching coach. Now, can he make the jump to a manager? I'm sure he could. But I don't know why I am in the back of my head not thinking that he is, it's not the word ready, but in the back of my head, I don't know that he's the best guy for the job right now. And that's because of how good he is with the pitching staff. And I don't want to be a guy who sits here and says that, Ruben Niebla can't move up in his career because he's so good at being a pitching coach, because, sometimes you get typecast, and with one team, you're a pitching coach for 10, 15 years. That's all you are. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but, here in the radio world, sometimes, like, I'll just say me, I'm obviously a different story because I am doing my own show right now, but sometimes producers get typecast into you're a producer role, which is not a bad thing because producers are needed. But, I had interviewed for jobs years and years ago, and I would say that I wanted to be the host, or a co-host of a show that I was interviewing for. And they would always come back and they say, oh, well, we think you're a great person for this job, but you're a better producer. And it hurt at the time because I didn't really understand that that was actually something they were saying to make me feel better. But being someone who is typecast is not always the most fun place to be. So I would have to, actually talk to Ruben Niebla a little bit about his situation. I feel like the Padres treat him really well. I feel like the fans love him. I feel like the players love him. So everything that comes from Ruben Niebla is usually a positive. And I don't think that's a bad thing to have at the top of the organization. But with Tony saying he selfishly didn't want it to happen was because Ruben Abel would have his attention towards other stuff, and maybe he wouldn't be able to do the pitching as much, and that would be a change. That would be a huge change for this team. So I'm not sure if the team is ready for that. And pitching coaches usually, I guess in the years that I've seen, they're not usually as highly coveted as a guy like Ruben Abel is, and maybe that's just a San Diego thing, but it's to me, if he doesn't get the job, it's not a reflection on whether he can do the job or not, because I do think he can do the job. If he doesn't get the job, it's more of a reflection of how good he is at his current job. And so if he wants to be a manager, he's probably, if he doesn't get it this time around, because I'm not going to rule him out. I don't think he's a candidate that you can just, you can just throw in the garbage. I think that he's a candidate that they're seriously talking to him about the position. But are you ready to put someone else in charge of pitching? I'm not sure. I don't know. I think that he's really good at what he does, and he does a lot more things than we all see. So it all comes down to, I guess, how he feels about it. Does he feel like he's ready to be a manager? Does he feel like he's better suited being a pitching coach? It's kind of like some guys are really good offensive coordinators and terrible head coaches, or defensive coordinators and terrible head coaches. Sometimes when you are able to shrink everything and you can focus on one thing rather than many things, you can become really good at that. And some guys are just really good at leading, and some guys are really good at multitasking, and some guys are really good at being a manager, being a coach. And I think Ruben Niebla is a good man, or a good coach, could be a good manager, but I'm not sure if it's the right time. Now, Nick Hundley, Tony, on the other hand, Nick Hundley, he thinks that Nick Hundley is a great candidate for this job. He likes Nick Hundley and knows Nick Hundley well. And Nick Hundley already turned down the Giants job because he wanted to spend a little bit more time with his family. And it just so happens that his family lives here in San Diego. So if Nick Hundley was selected for the job, he's coming home and he's going to get to spend more time with his family. So that would help. Now he is a first-time manager if he was hired, but he does have that playing experience. He was a catcher. Some catchers end up as managers. You're looking at one right now. John Schneider of the Blue Jays was a catcher turned manager. So there's lots of questions. Like Albert Pujols would be great, and it would put the Padres back on the news map, which is fun when your team is the one that's being talked about. But again, the question for me with Albert Pujols is he ready to be the guy in the manager role? Is he ready to make bullpen moves? Is he ready to, pinch hit at certain times? I'm not sure. I don't know enough about Albert Pujols, the manager, to know that. I know that he can hit a lot of home runs and he can play some great defense, but I'm not sure what his managerial skills are. World Series, top of the fourth inning, Toronto gets another run. Teoscar Hernandez dove at a ball in right field and it got by him. And so Varsho tripled. I'm not sure who is on first right now for the Blue Jays or who drove in Varsho, but it is now 3-1 in the top of the fourth with 2 outs. Runner on first. The Blue Jays win this game. The pressure is squarely, this is obvious, but the pressure squarely on the Dodgers. They cannot lose this World Series in their mind. They spent all the money. Dave Roberts says he wants to go and ruin baseball some more. Well, if you don't win, you can't ruin baseball. So there's some pressure going to be put here on the Dodgers. Tom says, I don't care about our team being talked about in the offseason. I only want to be talked about in late October. That's a fair point, Dom. I just haven't had the experience of talking about them in late October yet. All right. Matt Skraby, Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. You can follow me at Matt Skraby on Instagram and Twitter. You can also go to the YouTube at The Skraby Show is where my YouTube is at. When we get back, I'll see if no more runs are going to be scored. Blake Snell gets out of the inning, so the Dodgers are going to come up to hit here in the bottom of the fourth. But I'm going to talk about some more of the Padres players, some more questions about guys who are currently under contract and what I'm questioning for this offseason with them. That was a really terrible way of teasing. I'm going to give my big questions about these players when we get back on 97.3 The Fan.
Hey, it's Ben Higgins.
I just came up with a new daily gripe for today, and I'm going to go write it down because it just came to me as we were coming back. Because there's something that really bothers me. I'm typing it down right now, and I will talk about it later because it is quite bothersome to me sometimes. I don't get it, is what I'm trying to say. I don't understand why these people do these things sometimes. Not sure about that. Matt Skraby, Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. Thank you for joining us, or joining me. You can watch on YouTube, as you know, at The Skraby Show or 97.3 The Fan. I did my big questions yesterday for 2026, and I'll do my big questions for 2026 again with 4 new players. And the first player we're going to get into is Manny Machado. Manny Machado, I think, had a pretty good season. He tailed off at the end, so that definitely hurts. But the first part of the season, he carried the team. I mean, this team would have been nowhere without Manny in the first part of the year. So we have to take that into account. But my big question for Manny coming into 2026 is, can he lift those numbers just a little bit? Can he carry the team a little bit longer this year? I'm asking a lot of questions. Let me rephrase that. Here's the question. Can he continue his pace throughout the entire season? Because, this year, Manny, as I said, carried the team. But then he did struggle. And when Manny struggles, the team struggles. We say it all the time. Where Manny goes, the team goes. Manny, his stats are incredibly similar throughout his entire career. We talk about the baseball card all the time. But he hit 275 exactly in the last 2 seasons. And his OPS this year, 795, and his OPS last year, 797. So I feel like last year, I don't know why, but I feel like in 2024, we were waiting for Manny to break out. And we all know about the elbow injury. He had surgery in the offseason, so he wasn't healthy coming into spring training. And I didn't expect a season that was going to be off the charts, but he did a really good job. 152 games. He hit 29 home runs in 2024, 105 RBIs in 2024. Last year, 27 home runs and 95 RBIs. So still great numbers, like numbers that stars put up. But I think when you're being paid as one of the highest players on the team, if not the highest player on the team, I would have to make sure, but I'm pretty sure he's the highest paid player on the team. That means that you have to carry the team when you are being asked to carry the team. And I feel like Manny can do it, but this year, at the end of the year, was tough to watch at certain times. I mean, case in point, game 2 of the wild card series. Manny hits the home run, 2-run shot, and the Padres go on to win the game. And so that's how he can impact the game, is by hitting that home run that ends up putting the Padres ahead and winning the game for them. But this year, he had his second most Ks in his career outside of 2022. So he was a little bit worse in the Ks department. His strikeouts, he struck out 131 times in 2025, 133 times in 2022. So, honestly, pretty similar numbers, but you can't have Manny striking out more as his career goes on. And here's something that he had last year that he's only had 2 other times in his career, and he stole 14 bases last year. And in 2018, he stole 14. In 2015, he stole 20. Other than that, he has an 11, a 3, a 9. So he stole some more bases this year, which is always a good thing. But I don't know that we can count on that. Bottom line with Manny Machado, my big question is, can he carry the team all year long? Because I think that's the next step in his Padres evolution. Can he be Shohei Ohtani? No one could be Shohei Ohtani. But can he be Shohei Ohtani and just will his team to victory? I know that he can. We've seen it. But I felt like last year there were some times where he could have put the team on his back and it just didn't happen. So Manny Machado, can he carry the team all year long? Let's go to Jake Cronenworth. Jake Cronenworth, I thought he had a really underrated 2024. He had 17 home runs, 83 RBIs. He did hit only 241, but this year was his best OPS he's had since 2021. He also had the second most walks of his career. So my question for Jake Cronenworth is, can you help hit for a little bit more power? His OPS this year, 744, pretty average. His OPS in 2021, when he was an all-star the first time, 800. And he hit 21 home runs, 71 RBIs, 266 average. We have not seen that guy since. And again, I feel like he's put together some pretty good seasons, but I don't actually know what our expectations were for Jake Cronenworth. Once he got signed to the contract a couple years ago, his expectations changed because now he's a part of the core, and now he has to deliver when he's playing. He was hurt a little bit this year. He took that pitch to the back and ended up like breaking a rib. It was bad, so that was a kind of a freak injury, and so he dealt with that. But a lot of guys deal with injuries throughout the year. I just got the big question for Jake Cronenworth is if he can get back to that 20 home run plateau for the Padres, because we know what the Padres need going forward, and that is power, slug, not just power, just slug, which is kind of the same thing. But when I say power, I feel like it's home runs only. But he needs more doubles. He only had 20 last year. 2024 he had 29. 2022 he had 30. 2021 he had 33. He always leads, or he doesn't always lead, but he does hit a lot of triples. And this year he only had one triple, which those are kind of arbitrary to begin with. But question for Jake Cronenworth, can he get back to that 20 home run level? Can he get back over, let's say, a 260 batting average? Xander Bogaerts. This one is a little interesting because Xander had one of the worst starts to a year I think we've seen in a long time. And we're going to have to put the money aside here because he's on the team. He's going to be on the team. He's going to stay on the team. So we have to put that aside for a second. But his second half was really good. He ended up with hitting 263, which I didn't think he was ever going to get there. He ended up with 11 home runs, 53 RBIs, and he did play in 136 games. Question for Xander Bogaerts next year. Can you start and finish hot? He's like a Manny guy. He needs to be playing up to his contract potential all season long for the Padres to go to the World Series and win a World Series. So Xander Bogaerts is pretty self-explanatory. I think everybody knows what Xander does well, what he doesn't do well. And I think the question is, can he get back to Boston Red Sox Xander Bogaerts? The answer, I don't think so, but that's not a bad thing because you don't need to be Boston Red Sox Xander Bogaerts. Just need to be a good Padre Xander Bogaerts. Last one, Mason Miller. And that is, can he be the closer in 2026 if Robert Suarez leaves in free agency or his option with the Padres doesn't go, he chooses not to stay with the Padres. So Mason Miller is probably going to be that closer. He had 28 saves for the A's in 2024. He had, 20 saves for the A's this year and 2 saves for the Padres. But Mason Miller can he get even better? We saw what he did this year. Can he get to the 30 save number? That seems like a pretty good number to get to for if you're a closer, to get to that 30 save number. And he hasn't done that in his career yet. In 2024, as I said, he had 28 saves, so that's the closest he's been. But give him some opportunities, and I think that he will easily get to that 30 save number here this year. And with all of these guys, it's can they stay healthy? Because that's the biggest part. And his arm worries me a little bit because he does throw so hard that you never want any sort of arm injury to pop up, because that's going to take him out of the lineup for quite a while. But I think Mason Miller is primed for the next couple years to be the best closer in baseball. That's how good he is. We've seen it. We know he could do it. And he already has that experience closing games. So the question for him is, can he get to the 30 save mark? And my answer is yes, he can get to the 30 save mark. All right, World Series staying where it's at. 3-1, Blue Jays still. Dodgers just turned a double play. Top of the 5th inning, 2 outs. Bo Bichette at the plate. When we get back, I want to talk about what happened with this Brian Kelly LSU, or Brian Kelly and the governor of Louisiana stepping into LSU's decision to hire a new football coach. We'll talk about that. I have the Daily Gripe, and who else knows where everything is going to go when we get back on the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan.
The biggest guests in San Diego sports talk appear on 97.3 The Fan.
We're talking with San Diego FC sporting director Tyler Heaps.
Growing up, they didn't have that opportunity, and so the fact is now we can provide.
right, we still got the Daily Gripe. We still have my Halloween movie, which, I started this Halloween movie recommendation thing at the beginning of the month, or at least some point in the beginning of the month. And I felt like I failed all of you because I have not really been giving great suggestions. So I'm going to keep doing it because I'm going to see it through until the end of October. But I'm going to have to rethink this Halloween movie thing. I've watched a lot of scary movies in my life. A lot of scary movies. But making recommendations is very nerve-wracking. I wonder how many people out there feel the same way, because I don't like doing it, because what if that person doesn't like it? Then they're like, oh man, Skraby gave me a terrible recommendation. I'm never going to listen to him again. And I would understand it. But it's like food recommendations. Food recommendations are scarier than movie recommendations, because now people are going out and they're actually having dinner or lunch or whatever, breakfast. And what if the restaurant is bad? Then that person is going to hate you forever because you suggested a really terrible restaurant. And you know what? They should hate you forever. That's why I try not to give restaurant recommendations, because I don't go to enough restaurants to really know what's good out there other than the main ones that everybody already knows about. And B, I just don't want that pressure, man. Don't want that pressure. That is serious. I got a Halloween movie recommendation from Rod, Pet Sematary. And, I watched that for the first time like a year ago. I know it's kind of crazy to think about that, but watched it like a year ago and I really liked it. It held up. I thought it was awesome. Pet Sematary was a better movie than I thought it was. I know that there is, I had a friend. This is a really mean story. I wasn't a part of the story, but I had a friend back when I was younger, like maybe 13, 14 years old. And this friend had older brothers. And the older brothers, when he was like 7 years old, 6, 7 years old, like they were supposed to watch him, tied him to a chair and made him watch Pet Sematary as like a 6 or 7-year-old. And he was terrified of Pet Sematary till the end of time, and still is terrified of Pet Sematary. But the funny part of that story is that the brothers got in so much trouble because they showed him this movie, not because he's not supposed to, but because every night for like the next 3 months, my friend was going into his parents' room telling him they had nightmares about Pet Sematary. So if you're out there, don't force your little brother or little sister to watch scary movies when they probably shouldn't watch scary movies. I remember watching, now this is not it's not a scary movie, but I remember being like 6, 7, 8 years old and watching Terminator 2. Like my parents did not know I was watching Terminator 2, but the cop, I can't remember his name in the movie, but he turns into liquid. That terrified me. Absolutely terrified me. This dude turning into liquid. And then there was this like a scene where he's running and he turns his hands into knives, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Ugh, so gross. I love the movie now, but as a kid, I was terrified, and I knew if I went to go tell my parents, they were going to end up finding out that I actually did watch Terminator 2 when I wasn't supposed to watch Terminator 2. And so I never said anything. Maybe they're listening right now and they're figuring it out for the first time. Steve says, good thing the kid wasn't tied up to watch The Exorcist. That is a good thing. The Exorcist is, obviously it's a great movie. It's one of the better scary movies of all time. But I think people hype it up a little too much. I think people say that The Exorcist is like the scariest movie of all time. And it could be. I'm not saying that's not, because I have heard stories and read things about people in the theater throwing up and leaving and crying and all of this other stuff, because the movie came out, I believe, in the 70s. But I think we hype it up a little too much, because I told one of my cousins to watch it one time and they just didn't care about it. And maybe they were lying to me, but they said it wasn't as scary as I said it was, which I can understand now because of the CGI and all of the different visual effects that we have with movies. But The Exorcist did a really good job with those visual effects back in the 70s. And I watched behind the scenes of The Exorcist. And apparently, the director, there's a point in the movie where the priest has to like do the sign of the cross and he's like shaking. And I guess the director had him do it a couple times and didn't like how he did it because he wasn't like scared enough or something. So the director came up to the guy and just slapped him across the face. And the guy was so angry that he started shaking. And the director said, action. And then they went with it. And that was the scene that they put into the movie. So not sure that a director could just slap someone these days, but it was effective back in the 70s. Definitely effective back in the 70s. All right. Same thing going on in the World Series. So we'll keep moving. This whole thing with Brian Kelly and LSU is strange, but it's something that I've thought about in the past, but I never really took it past the thought because it was so commonplace that it just didn't seem to matter. But these coaches that are getting fired and getting these huge payouts to be fired, which I need to find a job one day that's going to pay me millions of dollars to be fired because that would be a good fallback. But these coaches that work for some of these schools, like the last two big college football coaches that got fired and have huge payouts are Brian Kelly and James Franklin of Penn State. And both of those are state schools. And so I always thought, because state schools are obviously funded by the state, I always thought, like, what do people think within the government about all of this money being wasted on Brian Kelly and James Franklin? They're both getting paid over $50 million to go the other way. And I would think that that would bother some taxpayers. I know that some people don't care. I'm kind of in that boat because we don't really have anybody in the state that's making a ton of money to be a football coach. I'm trying to think right now. I'm a college football coach. I can't think of anyone that's going to be James Franklin or Brian Kelly level. But the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, has been very vocal about this whole thing with Brian Kelly. And Urban Meyer said, we played on the show earlier, Urban Meyer said that the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, had something to do with Brian Kelly being removed from his position. And so there was a question today in some sort of Q&A for the governor in Louisiana, Governor Landry. The question was asked, like, because he's been so involved in this, is the athletic director, Scott Woodward, going to be able to select a new coach? Because if you don't know, Scott Woodward also hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher got over $70 million to be fired. So Scott Woodward is on the hook for over $100 million, $120 million of wasted money. And so that's not a good resume piece on your resume. I wouldn't put that on the resume. But here's what Governor Jeff Landry of Louisiana said, and his accent is great.
The first question is absolutely correct. We are not going down a failed path. And I wanted to tell you something. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. You know, I'm not going to be picking the next coach. But I can promise you, we're going to pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful. And we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly. And we're going to put metrics on it. Because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country and then leaving the taxpayers on the foot, to foot the bill. So, yeah, absolutely.
All right, so you get the gist of what he's saying. And I don't disagree with what he's saying. If we're going to mix the sports and politics world together, I don't disagree with what he's saying. Like, these contracts have to be thought about a little bit more carefully than what they have been. Because when you got buyouts like that, I'm sorry. You should just be forced to keep that coach throughout their contract. Sure, if you want to fire him in the last year and their buyout's small, that's one thing. But to fire them with lots of years left on their contract and lots of money that they are going to be owed, Brian Kelly is owed, I think he said $53 million by the state of Louisiana. And so I'm wondering, like, maybe the chat can tell me. I'm wondering if this is going to become a bigger deal. If state universities are going to think twice before they pay a coach $1 bajillion and then fire them 3 or 4 years later and owe them $1 bajillion. Because, again, I don't necessarily disagree with Governor Jeff Landry. Now, I don't know why he's a part of this. I mean, I guess I do know why he's a part of this, because he's the governor of the state, and his state just paid Brian Kelly $53 million to walk the other way. But I don't know if this is something we're going to see going forward. And I haven't heard the Pennsylvania governor saying anything. Dominic says, makes a good point on the chat. Athletic directors going into a room to negotiate with high-priced agents completely out of their element and getting worked over. That's not a bad point at all. Brian Kelly, I don't know who his agent is, but I'm sure that he has a really great agent, and I know that they really wanted Brian Kelly, so he was basically able to determine what he got in his contract. But it's going to change. I bet you it's going to change. There's going to be some sort of... Coaches should not be owed that much money for leaving. And this is why college football doesn't make any sense to me. Because you got coaches making millions and millions and millions of dollars to be fired. And you got the guys who are actually out there playing, making some money, but it's an afterthought to what these coaches are making. Like, no, I don't think a football coach should make $100 million over like 7 years. Don't think. Does the football team bring in money to the school? Absolutely. But to be like in some of these states, football coaches, college football coaches, are the highest paid employee of the state. I don't think that's right. I'm not a big fan of that. A football coach should not be the number one paid person in the state government, in my opinion. Trying to stay away from politics getting too crazy. But Governor Jeff Landry says maybe President Trump will pick the next coach of LSU. I would actually like to see who he would pick. All right, Halloween movie. We already talked about Pet Sematary, but I'm going to go easy again. Told you I failed you all with these recommendations. But 28 Days Later is maybe my favorite zombie movie. I really like that terrible zombie movie, Night of the Living Dead, or it was in a wall or in a mall. But 28 Days Later, great. 28 months later, not great. 28 years later, which just came out, love it. And they're going to go with another movie after this, which I didn't necessarily expect, but I probably would watch it. But if you like zombie stuff, if you're interested in storytelling, the first one's the best one, 28 Days Later. And it has, oh my gosh, what's that guy's name? Cillian Murphy. He's the main guy in the first movie. It's one of his first movies. So 28 Days Later and 28 Years Later. You can skip 28 months later if you really want to.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
All right, Daily Gripe. Addison Barger just made a great catch for the Blue Jays in the outfield. My Daily Gripe, Chris, that's it. No, just kidding. My Daily Gripe is this, and I see it all the time from like national baseball writers. It's the baseball people on Twitter. But when a game like the World Series is going on, I think when the game like the World Series is going on, I don't need tweet updates about certain things that happened in the game. I don't know who they're trying to inform with this tweet, but I'm not watching Twitter. I'm watching the game. And so Jeff Passan just put out this whole thing about how, Vladdy hit a home run, and doing play-by-play on Twitter is my gripe. I'm not a fan of it. Not a fan of the play-by-play on Twitter. I'm not a fan of the romanticizing of things on Twitter as well, but that's a story for another day. Stick Death, which is a great name. Watch 30 Days of Night, the movie, but the vampire one. Love 30 Days of Night. Josh Hartnett's in it. It is a great movie. If you want to watch a vampire movie, watch 30 Days of Night because it is awesome. All right, that is it for me. Blue Jays leading 3-1. Talk to you all tomorrow before Thursday Night Football.
Born and